me ask you something. What if the very thing you've been afraid to do, saying nothing, was actually the one thing that could make him fall back in love with you? What if silence, not effort, not words, not chasing, was the real power you've been overlooking? Because here's the truth. A man doesn't fall back in love when you try harder. He falls back in love when he feels your absence. When the woman who used to explain herself suddenly stops. When the one who used to fight for connection decides her peace is worth more than proving her point. That silence, that shift, shakes him in a way no speech ever could. You see, silence isn't weakness. It's not about pretending or playing games. It's about reclaiming your energy, your value, your mystery. When you stop giving him every reaction, he starts searching for your attention. When you stop being predictable, he starts being curious again, because silence forces him to feel what words have been protecting him from the reality of losing you. So before you scroll away, listen closely. This isn't just another talk about how to make him miss you. This is about understanding the psychology of power, attraction, and emotional energy, and why the moment you stop chasing, everything starts shifting in your favor. If you truly want to understand why silence makes a man fall back in love, not as a tactic, but as a transformation, then stay with me until the very end. Because once you understand how silence speaks louder than love itself, you'll never beg for anyone's attention again. You'll become the silence he can't forget. The one that echoes long after you're gone. You know what's fascinating about silence? Most people think it's passive. They think silence means giving up, losing control, or walking away defeated. But silence, real intentional silence, is the complete opposite. It's not absence, it's power. It's the calm confidence of someone who knows their worth without needing to prove it. It's the emotional discipline that most people never learn because they're too busy reacting, explaining, or defending themselves to be understood. When someone hurts us or pulls away, our first instinct is to speak. We want to talk, clarify, fix things, make them see what they're losing. We think our words will heal the distance, but here's the truth. When emotion runs high, words lose their weight. The more you talk, the more you teach someone that you're still accessible. You teach them that even if they stop valuing you, they can still have your attention. Silence, on the other hand, changes that dynamic instantly. It communicates what words can't. I'm not here to be understood anymore. I'm here to be respected. Psychologically, silence triggers awareness. It forces the other person to confront the gap between what they expected, your reaction, pursuit, your validation, and what they actually get, nothing. That nothing becomes loud. It echoes in their mind. They begin to question, to notice, to reflect. Silence creates space, and in that space, realization grows. It's not punishment, it's perspective. You give them the chance to see what life feels like without your energy constantly filling their world. You see, when you stop speaking, something powerful happens inside you too. You stop trying to control how someone else sees you. You stop fighting to be chosen. You reclaim your emotional center. That's the real strength behind silence. It's not about manipulating someone to miss you. It's about coming back home to yourself. When you're no longer chasing clarity from someone who's already confused, you start finding clarity in your own peace. And make no mistake, silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've reached a point where peace matters more than proving a point. It's choosing not to participate in chaos. It's understanding that love without respect is noise, and you're done being part of it. That decision, quiet, steady, unannounced, is one of the most powerful emotional shifts you can make. It says, I'm not angry. I'm just done talking to walls. Philosophically, silence is the purest expression of strength because it removes ego from the equation. Ego wants to win. Ego wants the last word. But true strength doesn't argue. It observes. It lets actions reveal truth. And that's why silence always exposes character. If you fall silent and someone never reaches out, it tells you everything you needed to know. You didn't lose them. You simply stopped carrying the conversation alone. There's another layer to this too. When you practice silence, you start hearing things you couldn't before. You hear your intuition again. You hear the difference between what you want and what you've been settling for. You realize how much energy you've spent keeping something alive that wasn't feeding your soul. That's not weakness. That's awakening. Because silence isn't just about them missing you. It's about you finally seeing yourself clearly. A man who truly values you doesn't fall back in love because of what you say. He falls back in love when your silence reminds him of the peace he lost. When he realizes that you were the calm in his storm, and now that calm is gone, he starts to crave that energy again. Not the drama, not the validation, the peace. That's the paradox of silence. What feels like withdrawal to you feels like gravity to him. And when he comes back, if he does, it's not because you begged for attention. It's because you created a void that only your presence can fill. But even if he doesn't come back, your silence still wins. Because it taught you that your worth doesn't depend on someone else's recognition. It taught you that love shouldn't require constant explanation to be understood. It taught you that peace is not something someone else gives you. It's something you decide to keep. So the next time you're tempted to explain, to reach out, to make him see what he's losing, don't. Let silence do what words can't. Let it speak for you. Let it remind him. And more importantly, remind yourself that the loudest kind of confidence isn't found in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. Because the truth is simple. When you stop speaking from desperation, you start communicating from strength. And that silence, steady, grounded, unapologetic, is the sound of self-respect echoing louder than any declaration of love ever could. There's something deeply human about wanting to be understood. You want him to know why you acted a certain way, what you meant, what you need, what you feel. But here's the paradox. The more you try to make him understand, the less mystery you leave for him to explore. And that mystery, that small space of uncertainty, is where attraction actually lives. When a man first falls in love, it's not just with your looks or your voice. It's with the unknown. It's with the way you made him curious. He didn't have you fully figured out, and that made him want to keep trying. But over time, as you start giving more, explaining more, chasing more, that mystery fades. The dynamic shifts. You go from being the woman who made him wonder to the woman who's always available to clarify. And the truth is, people stop valuing what's too easy to understand. Silence reintroduces mystery. It gives him back that uncertainty, the healthy kind that fuels attraction. When you stop speaking, stop posting, stop reacting, you leave a gap in his awareness. He starts to wonder what you're thinking, what you're doing, whether you've moved on, or whether you're fine without him. That curiosity is powerful, because when a man starts wondering again, he starts investing emotionally again. Psychologically, curiosity and attraction are deeply connected. The human brain is wired to pursue closure. It craves answers to incomplete stories. And silence creates exactly that, an unfinished story. He can't predict your next move anymore. You're no longer the same predictable version of yourself he thought he knew. You become the unknown again, and that unsettles him in the best possible way. He starts to remember how it felt when winning your attention wasn't guaranteed. That's the spark that reawakens desire, not comfort, but challenge. But this doesn't mean you play games. It's not about pretending or withholding affection. It's about protecting your energy. It's about letting him experience the weight of your absence long enough to appreciate what your presence actually meant. You see, mystery isn't manipulation. It's boundaries. It's saying, you don't get access to my emotions just because you used to. It's allowing someone to feel the distance they created. And in that space, they rediscover what they once took for granted. Men are natural problem solvers. When something feels uncertain, their instinct is to figure it out. That's why silence often pulls them back in. Not because they suddenly become more romantic, but because they feel the tension of not knowing. They start trying again, asking questions, reaching out, testing the waters. And if you stay grounded in your silence, if you don't rush to fill the space, that mystery deepens. He begins to realize that the version of you he once knew is evolving without him. That's when fear creeps in, the fear of losing something rare. Philosophically, mystery is essential to love because it keeps both people awake. The moment one person becomes entirely predictable, attraction starts to fade. Silence restores that natural balance. It says, you no longer get to see every thought I have, every emotion I feel. You become selective with your energy, and that selection is what creates value. Because value isn't about being wanted, it's about being wondered about. This is why silence, when done with grace, never feels cold. It feels intriguing. It doesn't say, I don't care. It says, you no longer have full access. That difference is everything. It's not rejection, it's redefinition. You're shifting the dynamic from pursuit to presence. You're reminding him that your world exists beyond him, and that realization is magnetic. A woman who can disappear into her own life, into her peace, into her growth, that woman becomes unforgettable. You see, people don't miss noise. They miss energy. They miss the way you made them feel. And when you stop giving that energy freely, the silence doesn't just speak. It echoes. He starts to notice the emptiness where your laughter used to be. He starts to remember how it felt when your attention made him feel like the only one in the room. That's when he begins to fall back in love, not with the version of you that was always available, but with the version that is now untouchable. The beauty of mystery is that it doesn't chase validation, it invites respect. When you stop explaining, he starts reflecting. When you stop being predictable, he starts becoming present. And that shift, that quiet recalibration of energy, is what brings love back to life. Not through words, but through the silence that makes him realize what he lost. So don't be afraid to pull back. Don't rush to fill the quiet. Let him wonder, let him feel that space. Because when you remove your presence, you allow him to rediscover its value. When you stop trying to be understood, you give him the space to start understanding. And maybe that's the real secret. Love doesn't fade because two people stop talking. It fades because one person stops being curious. Silence brings that curiosity back. It makes him look again, listen again, and feel again. Because in the end, it's not the words that make him fall back in love. It's the silence that reminds him of everything words could never say. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It's the beginning of reflection. It's that space where the truth finally has room to breathe. When you stop speaking, stop explaining, stop trying to fix everything with words, something powerful begins to happen, not just for you, but for him too. Because in silence, every action, every choice, every mistake starts echoing back louder than before. When you step back and say nothing, you're no longer interrupting his thoughts with your emotions. You're giving him the space to actually feel what he's done. And that's something words can never achieve. Words can be debated, dismissed, or argued with, but silence can't be escaped. It sits in the air like a mirror, forcing him to face himself. Men often don't reflect when you're still talking. When you're reaching out, explaining, trying to fix things, all they hear is noise. But when that noise disappears, when the calls stop, when the energy shifts, suddenly the reality of what they've lost hits them in waves. It's in those quiet moments, when the phone doesn't light up, when your name doesn't appear, when the world grows still, that his mind starts playing back the past like a movie he can't pause. He starts remembering your voice, your patience, the way you listened when no one else did. He replays those moments he brushed off, the times he made you feel small, the days he thought you'd always be there. In the silence, he hears the truth you're no longer waiting. That realization doesn't come through confrontation. It comes through emptiness. Through the space where your energy once filled his world. Psychologically, reflection is born out of discomfort. We only confront our behavior when silence forces us to. When we can't distract ourselves with noise, that's when guilt, regret, and longing start to surface. And that's why your silence is so powerful. It removes the distraction. It removes the comfort. It leaves him alone with himself, with the weight of his own actions. That's when realization begins. But let's be honest, silence isn't easy, especially when you care. It feels unnatural not to speak, not to defend yourself, not to remind him of everything he's forgetting. But silence requires emotional maturity. It's restraint. It's choosing peace over participation, because you know that real change doesn't come from convincing someone. It comes from them realizing it on their own. And that's exactly what silence does. It creates that sacred distance where realization grows. When you're silent, you remove the emotional cushioning that protected him from the consequences of his behavior. He doesn't have your forgiveness softening the edges anymore. He doesn't have your reassurance to quiet his guilt. All he has is the sound of his own conscience catching up to him. That's when he starts to see the difference between presence and availability. He realizes that just because you were always around didn't mean you'd always stay. He starts to understand that you weren't just another person in his life. You were the calm, the balance, the peace he took for granted. And that understanding doesn't come through lectures or arguments. It comes through the deafening weight of silence. Philosophically, silence has always been a teacher. It reveals what words hide. It shows people the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. When you choose silence, you become the mirror, and that mirror doesn't lie. It reflects not only who he was with you, but who he became when he stopped valuing you. That's what stings the most, not your absence, but the truth that your silence exposes. And here's the beauty of it. In that reflection, you grow too. You start seeing things clearly that emotion once blurred. You start recognizing that not everyone deserves your energy just because you love them. You realize that silence doesn't just reveal others, it reveals you. It shows you how strong you can be when you stop needing someone to understand you and start focusing on understanding yourself. For him, the silence becomes a haunting reminder. Every time he remembers something you said or did, it's followed by quiet. That quiet becomes his new reality. He starts realizing that he didn't just lose a person, he lost peace. He lost the one thing that made his world feel grounded. And that awareness doesn't fade quickly. It lingers. It follows him. Because silence isn't a door slam, it's an echo. And that echo lasts far longer than any words you could ever say. So don't rush to fill the silence. Don't break it because it feels heavy. Let it do its work. Let it reflect. Because sometimes the greatest act of love for yourself is to stop explaining your worth to someone who was never listening. Let the silence speak your value. Let it show him, without a single word, what it feels like to lose access to your presence. Because in the end, silence is not just about making him miss you. It's about making him see you. Not through your words, but through the absence of them. And when that realization finally hits, it won't be because you told him who you are. It'll be because your silence reminded him of everything he failed to see when you were still speaking. Sometimes the loudest truths are the ones said in quiet. And when you learn to let silence do the talking, you stop chasing love and start commanding it. Detachment is one of the hardest lessons in love because it goes against everything we're taught about connection. We're told that if we love someone, we should fight for them. That if we care, we should hold on tighter. But what no one tells you is that sometimes holding on keeps you small. Sometimes the most powerful way to make someone see your value is to stop trying to prove it. That's what true detachment is. It's not indifference, it's emotional clarity. It's knowing that you can love someone deeply and still choose yourself first. When you detach, you shift the entire dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer orbiting around their moods, their attention, their choices. You step back into your own gravity. That shift is magnetic because it breaks the pattern. A man who's used to your constant reassurance starts to feel the void. He starts to notice that your energy isn't there to comfort him anymore. And that absence, that quiet confidence, pulls him in more than any words ever could. You see, love that's built on attachment often feels desperate. It says, I need you to make me feel enough. But love built on detachment says, I am already enough, and I choose to share that with you. The first one drains you. The second one empowers you. The difference lies in control, not over the other person, but over yourself. Because when you detach, you stop begging for closure and start becoming your own closure. Psychologically, detachment triggers something interesting in people. The moment you no longer need them, they start needing you. It's not manipulation, it's human nature. People value what they fear losing. When you're always available, always forgiving, always ready to explain, there's no reason for them to rise. But when your silence turns into emotional distance, calm, grounded, self-assured distance, they're forced to confront a version of you they can't control. That's when they start chasing, not out of habit, but out of recognition. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop overgiving. It's the moment you realize that your peace has to come before your desire to be chosen. That realization is often born from pain, from being the one who always tried harder, loved louder, stayed longer. But once you reach that breaking point and pull your energy back, everything changes. You begin to see that the person who truly deserves you won't need you to lose yourself to love them. Philosophically, detachment is freedom. It's the ability to participate fully in life and love without becoming imprisoned by it. It's when your happiness no longer depends on how someone else treats you. That's when you become untouchable. You stop reacting to every shift in their attention.